Dr. Frank Luntz joins me, and I asked Frank to join me because I want to hear his assessment of the debate last week. I want to hear his assessment of how the Israeli Defense Forces and Prime Minister Netanyahu are communicating. And I want generally his assessment on how to make words work. I have told you before, the single most influential book in how I broadcast is Words That Work. Frank's book from over a decade ago changed how I do things. Good morning, Frank. How are you?
Good morning. And I have to tell you, my first assessment is you. You kept the debate moving. You asked the right questions. The audience didn't boo because of you guys. That NBC surprised everyone in the room by running a clean, clear, confident debate. Maybe the candidates fell a little bit short, but you guys up on stage did a brilliant job. So Hugh, thank you for not making the Republican look like the chaos that sometimes it does.
It's really much easier to work with 5 than 8 or 13. But, Frank, I don't know if any of the networks consult with you. I would actually have you on retainer if I were a network to sort of go through the debate with everyone and talk about rule sets and formats. I like the change to 90 seconds. I think it gives people a lot of chance. And I love killing the idea of no right of response because that creates an incentive to create chaos so that your name gets said by invoking another person's name. The rule sets always matter, right?
It matters, and actually, I think they should go to 2 minutes because in the end, we're electing a president, not a speaker. And I don't mean Speaker of the House, but a communicator. And you can say anything and show some sort of knowledge in a minute or 90 seconds. Once you get to 2 minutes, you absolutely need to have command. And what I hope is for the next debate, they're going to get rid of that rule entirely, and they're going to basically do issue blocks, 8 issue blocks, 15 minutes each, and let people demonstrate if they know something, and let them look like idiots if they don't.
Yeah, we'll be down to 4 because Senator Scott has dropped out now, which surprised me a little bit, and I'll have you talk about that. But quickly run down the row for us, Frank Luntz, and let's start left to right. Governor Christie was to my left, so let's go Governor Christie, Ambassador Haley, Governor DeSantis, Mr. Ramaswamy, and Senator Scott. Start with Governor Christie. How do you think he did?
I think he did okay. I don't think he did great because there's no knockout punch. There's nothing that we remember him by. If you go back to 2016, Christie just ate Rand Paul's lunch, and later on he forced Marco Rubio out of the debate. Those are knockout punches. Christie has the ability to do it. He's a great communicator. I thought he was good, but I didn't hear anything really special.
How about Ambassador Haley?
Nikki Haley, every time that Vivek Ramaswamy goes after her, he ought to learn that she destroys him, that she is quick on her feet. Her answer to abortion, I think, is the answer to the Republican Party that, make no mistake, did badly. And this is the second election in a row since Roe v. Wade that has not gone well for Republicans. They did worse than expected. And I believe that Nikki Haley has the answer to that. She continues to exceed expectations. And I know that in the room, more people thought she won than anybody else.
When she said, "You're just scum," she embedded that, and I hope it's decades down the road that we read an obituary of Vivek Ramaswamy, and I'll probably be in heaven when that happens, but that's going to be in his obit. And I don't think it was rehearsed. I think it was just a visceral reaction to the attack on her daughter.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't hear it, and I don't know if you realize, but I was in the 4th row, dead center, so she didn't say it loudly enough for any of us to hear it, but I know it was heard at home. And the other one was Vivek's calling Zelensky a Nazi, Zelensky being Jewish, coming from a country that was destroyed by the Nazis. That one, we couldn't believe what we heard, and we're all looking to each other wondering, did he just say that? I think, by the way, he was the big loser of the night.
Yeah, I get asked who was the winner, and I say, I don't know, but I know who lost, and it was Vivek. I will tell you, Frank, I didn't bring that up because I thought it was a verbal misstep as opposed to an intentional statement. The attack on the ambassador's daughter was quite obviously a deflection from his using TikTok. Governor DeSantis was in the middle. He's in the lead of these 5, though Ambassador Haley is catching him. What did you think of Governor DeSantis?
He's Richard Nixon of this race. If you read his transcript, he doesn't do badly. In fact, he does well. just by reading the transcript. But when you see him, his debate coaches have still not affected an effective delivery. And so he reminds me of a 11th grade, so junior in high school debate champion rather than a presidential candidate. The words are good, but somebody needs to sit with him on the delivery.
And then Senator Scott has dropped out, so we won't spend time on that. But Mr. Ramaswamy, your assessment of where he is and what he needs to do if he's going to get back into people's good graces.
So I teach all over the country, and my Republican students, and there aren't many, but my Republican students love him. If you're over age 40 now, it used to be over age 50, it started over age 60. If you're over age 40, you don't like him, you find him offensive, you don't like his foreign policy, you believe he's an isolationist, and he sounds like a young, articulate Donald Trump. I got to tell you, if you're under age 30, he's still the Andrew Yang of this campaign. But if you're over age 50, which is the average age of a Republican primary voter, you don't like him at all.
And I should say, by the way, Frank is not affiliated with any campaign, so that neither am I.
Correct.
We're both in Switzerland. Frank, now I want to switch to something I didn't prepare you for, but the Israeli Defense Forces is communicating online and in person, as is Prime Minister Netanyahu on Meet the Press yesterday, as is Defense Secretary Gallant and Benny Gantz in the War Cabinet. How do you think they're doing in messaging about the war?
I've actually started to look at that in a real way. Let's start with Netanyahu. He carries such baggage into this whole conversation. And perhaps it's not fair because people judge him before he even says a word, but they don't trust him. They don't feel comfortable with him. They don't believe that he has the interests of all sides at heart. Obviously, you have to represent and defend your country. But they look at him and they think that he's part of the problem, not part of the solution. So he's very glib. He's got an answer for everything. But if I were waving a magic wand, I would have him on television in America much less than he is. The one who's doing the best job, and it's not one that you mentioned, is the former Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett. He put CNN in its place. He put the BBC in its place. He's challenging these networks to be fair. He's challenged them to be accurate and to be truthful. And I got to tell you, he really is Israel's secret weapon because most people who see him don't realize that he's the former prime minister. And he's so effective in his language of saying that is not true.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That reminds me, I heard Ronna McDaniel from backstage. I watched her, and I know that you said something online afterwards that she's a secret weapon. I don't think people understand that including the RJC was just a brilliant stroke, and that was Ronna and David Bossie in the RNC. But she also communicates extraordinarily well, and I know there's 10% of the party that just loves to hate on Ronna, like they always love to hate on the RNC chairperson. But what do you think of her? I think she's doing a fabulous job.
I think the reason why I consider her a secret weapon is because you normally don't see a party chair being a good communicator because she's a real person. Even though she's got that name that she married into it, I watch her and I listen to her and she talks like an informed and educated average, ordinary human being. And when you stuff these communication with really smart people, and then you have people like Vivek who just go for the jugular every single time, Ronna has a way to not just be heard and not just be listened to, but be followed. And
I agree.
I don't often say that about the party chairman, but she's very down to earth, and she communicates real passion.
We got 30 seconds. I don't think the former president is going to do a debate until we get down to one or two, and Vivek will be one of those two. Do you think he should do one before that?
No, and I even tell him don't do any. Don't put yourself in that situation. You've got anywhere between 40 and 50% of the vote. Why bother? Now, I don't think that's good for democracy. I don't think that's good for the Republican Party. But as an advisor, I still tell him don't debate.
I do think he's going to have to if they get down to one alternative plus Vivek, who's really just a stand-in for the former president. But we will see. Frank, keep coming back. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. Dr. Frank Luntz on X, the site formerly known as Twitter. Anyone who needs help, call Frank because he knows what he's doing.